Hi there, I'm Deb Payne, the librarian.
I'm Deanna Brown.
I'm Susan Park.
And I'm Megan Adams.
This team right here, they brought First Chapter Friday to Everett High School.
And then our department embraced it, and now it's school-wide.
And it's gone district-wide.
We look forward to this all week. It's our favorite day of the week, and we love it.
Thank you so much for supporting First Chapter Friday.
First Chapter Friday is basically story time, but for grown-up kids. What it means is that on Fridays, every English teacher reads the first chapter of a high-interest young adult novel. It's usually the English teacher that reads it, but sometimes we have guest readers like the paraeducator or the secretary or the bookkeeper or something like that.
We value independent reading. Students are able to become compassionate and empathetic people who are able to make connections and be creative.
It is so important to us that our students connect with what they're reading. These books that we've chosen for First Chapter Friday reflect them and their communities. They help our students make sense of the world that they live in.
Another great benefit to First Chapter Friday is that all these students end up knowing about and reading the same books. So because they all have access to it, often what happens is by the end of the day, all the copies are checked out of the library. And then maybe a sophomore is reading the book in the lunchroom and a junior walks by and says, oh, like my teacher read that first chapter. It sounded pretty good. Do you like that? Or I'm reading that book too. And it creates connections. It creates conversations. It encourages conversations. And it's a shared experience that we're creating through reading all across our school.
I really like First Chapter Fridays because it gives me the opportunity to learn about more books that I would normally overlook. So it gives me that second chance to actually thoroughly look into it.
Things that I like about First Chapter Friday is the fact that teachers get to record themselves reading a chapter, and it's just very interesting to see how they read, especially when it's not like a classroom setting.
One of the things I like about First Chapter Fridays is that it exposes me to new books that I wouldn't have tried otherwise.
I like First Chapter Friday because you can find books that aren't usually in the standard English curriculum. You can find books that discuss relevant topics like inequalities, and there's also a lot of great fiction books.
I'm Addison Jersa. I'm president of the Bibliophile Society at Everett High, and we wanted to say thank you so much for the money. We read First Chapter Friday books about once a month. So far we've read Stepsisters and Lovely War. Teachers also will read them in the classroom, and everyone really enjoys the books. So thank you so much.
So we just want to say thank you for putting books into the hands of our students.
And for exposing our kids to a diverse array of voices.
And helping us create connections between our students through reading.
And giving us good old-fashioned story time with some students who may never have experienced it otherwise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Everett Public Schools, Everett Public Schools Foundation, and guests. My name is Amalia Pimenta, and I'm the librarian at Cascade High School.
And my name is Rachel Patrick, and I'm an English teacher and leadership teacher at Cascade High School.
We're here to tell you about the project we did with the grant we received from the Everett Public Schools Foundation, originally titled Project Lit and First Chapter Fridays. Our project sort of evolved into representation in young adult literature because stories matter. Stories for our students that reflect their lived experience, stories that are windows and mirror texts.
When we talk about window and mirror text, we talk about whether a student is able to see themselves reflected in a character in a text, or if they're able to see a whole new world through a window text instead. Students are able to build empathy for others through window text, but gain a lot of self-confidence by seeing people just like them accomplish things in mirror text.
We are well aware that diversity in children's books is light on the students of color, characters of color, predominantly white characters, written by white authors and often published with animals as protagonists, dominate the market. And we wanted to make sure we got books into the hands of our students that actually reflected their own background and heritage.
One of the things that we did was we had our students watch The Danger of a Single Story, which is a TED Talk by Chimamanda Adichie, where she discusses how a single story can be so dangerous if that's all you know about someone. We had our students reflect on this. Our students are 14 and 15 years old, and we wanted to share some of the reflections they came up with after watching this TED Talk.
There isn't a specific story used to define me personally, but I see a lot of people define Mexicans as illegals, which I've gotten subtle comments about, but never really gave much thought into it. When I was younger, I used to believe that a lot of people in Mexico lived in poverty as well because of the way Mexicans were typically portrayed as poor in the media. I was surprised to find out when I went to visit family that there were cities there and that people owned cars and all that. It's sad looking back how these types of stereotypes affected young people like me and their points of views of the world, which is why there should be more stories included and written, not just the same ones that we hear over and over again.
Another set of students who don't know each other wrote these two that we paired together. One wrote, as an Egyptian, people assume that we live in a really poor area, which is the complete opposite. People also assume that I live in pyramids and ride camels, which is not true at all. These stories probably come from history class. People don't understand that we live in a modern place and that people change their lifestyles. Another student wrote, for example, I thought that Egypt was only desert and dryness, but it's actually not all just sand and dirt. It has beautiful cities and it looks like a really cool place to go. But I looked at it like that because of the single stories I read growing up.
We thought it was important to also include stories that transcended the way people identified themselves with this story here. There is a single story that others often use to define me. Being transgender, people automatically assume I want the surgeries or I'm taking meds. Other examples of single stories that are part of my worldview are that politics are bad for children to learn or hear about. These single stories typically come from white, hetero people who think their opinion has to be correct. To get a balance of stories, you must see both sides of the coin, the good, the bad, and even the in-between. I wanted to share this slide with you particularly because these are some of the books we were able to purchase with our grant. They reflect the backgrounds of our students' lived experiences, but not only that, the first chapters have been read by a variety of Cascade High School staff and 2 district administrators. The staff and administrators also donated a copy of the book each, and we are so very grateful for our abundance this year. And we just want to say thank you, Everett Public Schools Foundation.
Thanks so much for helping my students be able to see themselves in characters in literature and help them build confidence in who they are. We appreciate it.